If you are new here, you are probably wondering why I am sitting in a bulletproof SUV wearing a $10,000 suit. Let me catch you up. 6 months ago, I was Nia Wallace, a broke, clumsy assistant who made one tiny mistake. I accidentally FaceTimed a stranger while I was in the shower. That stranger turned out to be Tae-Joon, the dragon, the Korean Mafia boss who owns half the city. Most men would have hung up. He didn't. He hired me. He seduced me. And then he took a bullet for me. Long story short, the assistant became the queen. I married the dragon. I thought the hard part was over. I thought we won. But in Tae-Joon's world, the honeymoon doesn't last forever. The war is just beginning. Before we dive into the chaos of my new life, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for Stories Pulse. Like the video if you love a good billionaire romance with a dangerous twist, and comment down below where you are watching from. I love seeing the global squad. And hey, if you haven't watched part 1 yet, check the description or the pinned comment. Trust me, you need to see how we met. Now, welcome back to the madness. Welcome to my life as Mrs. Kong. It's not all galas and champagne. Mostly, it's security checks. The heavy door of the black SUV slammed shut, sealing me inside a vacuum of filtered air and leather. I looked out the tinted window. The world outside was sunny, bustling with people walking their dogs and drinking coffee. But in here, it was quiet. Too quiet. "Ma'am, we are 5 minutes out from the spa," the driver said. His eyes flicked to me in the rearview mirror. He wasn't just a driver. He was ex-military. I could tell by the way he scanned every intersection like he expected a bomb to go off. I sighed and leaned back against the seat. "Thank you, Jean." I looked behind us. 2 more black SUVs were trailing my bumper so closely they might as well have been towed. 3 cars. 12 men. All of this just so I could get a pedicure. I pulled my phone out of my purse. It wasn't the cracked screen Android I used to have. It was a custom encrypted device Tae-Joon had given me. I tapped his name. Dragon. It rang once. Nia. His voice filled the car through the Bluetooth speakers. It was deep, rough, like gravel grinding against silk. Just hearing it made my heart do that stupid little flip it always did, even after 6 months. "Hey," I said, picking at a loose thread on my skirt. "I have a question." "Is it an emergency?" he asked. I could hear the sounds of a busy boardroom in the background. Papers shuffling. Men murmuring in low, fearful tones. He was in the middle of a meeting. A terrifying one, probably. "Depends on your definition of emergency," I quipped. "Babe, do I really need 4 bodyguards to get my toes painted? It's a spa, not a war zone. I feel like the president." There was a pause on the line. The shuffling of papers stopped. I imagined him holding up a hand to silence a room full of dangerous men just to talk to his wife about nail polish. "You are not the president, Nia," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "You are the wife of the dragon. You are a target. 4 is not enough." I was thinking of sending a 5th. I groaned, throwing my head back. "Tae-Joon, I can't even go to the bathroom without someone checking the stalls first. It's suffocating." "It is necessary," he cut in, his tone leaving no room for argument. "The Busan Syndicate has been quiet. Too quiet. I will not take risks with you. Not after the warehouse." The warehouse. The memory flashed in my mind, the cold floor, the gun, the blood blooming on his chest. My hand instinctively went to the necklace I wore now. It hid the small panic that rose in my throat every time I thought about that night. He had almost died for me. "Okay," I whispered, my fight draining away. "Okay. 5 bodyguards." "Got it." His voice softened instantly. He always knew when I gave in. "Nia." "Yeah. I will be home late. Don't wait up." "I always wait up," I said softly. "I know." I could practically hear the smirk in his voice. "Be good, Mrs. Kong." The line clicked dead. The car slowed to a halt in front of the ultra-luxury spa in Gangnam. Before I could even reach for the handle, the door was pulled open by a security agent. He had an earpiece and a face made of stone. Clear, he muttered into his collar. I stepped out, adjusting my sunglasses. Cameras flashed immediately. Paparazzi. They were camped out across the street. Being married to Tae-Joon meant being a celebrity, but not the fun kind. The kind where people speculated if you were pregnant or if your husband had killed someone that week. I kept my head down and hurried into the lobby. The smell of lemongrass and expensive oils hit me, instantly relaxing my shoulders. This was my sanctuary. For 1 hour, I wasn't the Mafia queen. I was just Nia. Or so I thought. I was lying on a heated massage table, a towel draped over my eyes, listening to the soft flute music. The door to the private room opened. I assumed it was the masseuse coming back. You have tension in your shoulders, a voice said. It wasn't the masseuse. The voice was sharp, cool, and distinctly Korean, but with an accent I hadn't heard before. It sounded regal and dangerous. I pulled the towel off my eyes and sat up. Standing at the foot of the table wasn't a spa employee. It was a woman. She was stunning in a terrifying way. She wore a white pantsuit that looked like it cost more than my college tuition. Her hair was a sleek, black bob, sharp enough to cut glass. Her lips were painted a dark plum color. She was looking at me like I was a stain on the floor. Who are you? I asked, clutching the towel to my chest. Where is my security? She chuckled, a low, dry sound. Your dogs are outside. They think I am a VIP guest. Which I am. She took a step closer. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I am Lady Hannah. My father runs the Busan Syndicate. My blood ran cold. The Busan Syndicate. Tae-Joon's rivals. The people he was worried about. What do you want? I tried to keep my voice steady, channeling some of that Tae-Joon energy. If you touch me, my husband will burn this city to the ground. Hannah smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Oh, I know. The dragon is very protective of his things. She walked around the table, trailing a manicured finger along the edge. I just wanted to see her. The woman who brought the great Kong Tae-Joon to his knees. I expected more. She stopped beside me, leaning down. I could smell her perfume. It smelled like cold metal and lilies. You are cute, she said, her voice dripping with poison. Like a puppy. But Tae-Joon married you for fun, little American girl. A novelty. A distraction from the blood and the business. You don't know him, I snapped, swinging my legs off the table to stand up. I wasn't going to let her talk down to me, even if I was wearing a bathrobe and she was in a power suit. He loves me. Hannah laughed again. Love? In our world, love is a weakness. And you're his biggest weakness. She leaned in close to my ear. Her whisper sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. He married you for fun. But when the war starts, and it is starting, Nia, he will need a queen. Not a mascot. Not a clumsy assistant who needs 5 men to get a pedicure. She pulled back, her dark eyes boring into mine. I was raised to rule this world. I was promised to him before you even knew how to spell Korea. Enjoy your time in his bed, Nia. But do not get comfortable. I am coming for his ring. And I am coming for his empire. She turned and walked out the door before I could even find the breath to respond. The door clicked shut. I stood there, trembling. Not from fear, but from rage. Mascot. She called me a mascot. My security burst a second later. Ma'am? Are you okay? We saw a woman leave. I want to go home, I said, my voice shaking. Now. The ride back to the penthouse was a blur. I didn't look out the window. All I could hear was Hannah's voice. He will need a queen. Was she right? Tae-Joon protected me. He spoiled me. He loved me, I knew that. But did he respect me? Or was I just a pet he kept in a golden cage to keep safe while he did the real work? We pulled into the underground garage of the Kong Tower. The private elevator whisked me up to the penthouse. The doors opened to the sprawling living room, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seoul skyline. It was beautiful. And empty. Tae-Joon. I called out. Silence. He wasn't home yet. I walked into the master bedroom. Lying on the bed was a large black box with a ribbon. I frowned and walked over to it. I untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside was a dress. It wasn't green this time. It was red. A deep, dark blood red. The color of wine and danger. It was silk, strapless, with a slit that went all the way up the thigh. A note was tucked on top. For the charity gala tonight. Wear this. I want the world to see what belongs to me. TJ. Belongs to me. Usually, I found his possessiveness sexy. Today, after what Hannah said, it felt different. It felt like a brand. His thing. His mascot. I touched the cold silk of the dress. The front door beeped. Heavy footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Nia? Tae-Joon. He walked into the bedroom. He looked exhausted. He had loosened his tie, and his white shirt was unbuttoned at the top, showing the edge of the dragon tattoo on his chest. His eyes found me immediately. His gaze swept over me, checking for injuries, before locking onto my face. You're home early, he said, walking toward me. How was the spa? He reached out to touch my cheek. His hand was warm, rough. I pulled away slightly. His hand froze in midair. His eyes narrowed instantly. The exhaustion vanished, replaced by that predator focus. What is it? He asked. His voice dropped. What happened? Nothing, I lied. I turned away, picking up the red dress. Just tired. Is this for tonight? He didn't answer about the dress. He stepped closer, crowding me against the bed. He didn't touch me, but his presence was overwhelming. He smelled of whiskey and gunpowder. Do not lie to me, Nia, he rumbled. You are terrible at it. Your hands are shaking. He took my hand in his. He was right. I was trembling. Who was it? He demanded. Did someone touch you? No, I said, looking up at him. It wasn't physical. Then what? I met someone, I admitted. Lady Hannah. The air left the room. Tae-Joon's face turned into a mask of stone. His jaw clenched so hard I thought he might crack a tooth. Hannah, he repeated the name like a curse. She was at the spa? She came into my room. She told me. I paused, looking at the red dress in my hands. She told me I was a mascot. That when the war starts, you'll need a real queen. Not me. Tae-Joon swore in Korean, a harsh, guttural sound. He turned away, running a hand through his hair, pacing the room. I should have killed her father years ago. He turned back to me, his eyes blazing. She is trying to get inside your head, Nia. It is what they do. Psychological warfare. Is she right? I asked quietly. He stopped. He looked at me, genuinely confused. What? Am I just a distraction? I asked, my voice rising. I have 5 bodyguards. I can't go anywhere. I don't know anything about your business. I sit in this tower and wait for you to come home. That's not a partner, Tae-Joon. That's a pet. He crossed the distance between us in 2 long strides. He grabbed my waist, pulling me flush against his hard body. His grip was tight, bordering on painful, but I didn't pull away. I needed to feel him. You are not a pet, he snarled, his face inches from mine. You are my life. If I keep you locked up, it is because I cannot breathe if I think you are in danger. You think this is a game? Hannah is not just a jealous woman. She is a killer. Her father butchers people for sport. He let go of my waist and cupped my face, forcing me to look at him. His dark eyes were burning with an intensity that made my knees weak. I don't need a business partner, Nia. I have an army of lawyers and killers for that. I need you. I need the woman who makes me laugh when I am covered in blood. I need the woman who looks at me and sees a man, not a monster. He leaned his forehead against mine. Wear the dress, he whispered against my lips. Tonight, we are going to the gala. And you will show Hannah exactly who you are. You are Mrs. Kong. And you do not bow to anyone. I looked into his eyes. I saw the fear there, the fear of losing me. But I also saw the possession. He wanted to show me off. He wanted to mark his territory. And tonight, I was going to let him. Okay, I whispered. I'll wear the dress. He kissed me then. It wasn't gentle. It was a claim. a promise of violence against anyone who dared to threaten what was his. When he pulled away, his eyes were dark with hunger. "Get ready," he said, his voice husky. "We leave in an hour." "And Nia?" "Yeah, red is my favorite color." He turned and walked into the bathroom to shower. I stood there, holding the silk dress. My heart was pounding. Hannah had declared war. Tae-Joon was ready to fight. But as I looked at my reflection in the mirror, I knew one thing. I couldn't just be the woman waiting in the tower anymore. If I was going to survive this, if we were going to survive this, I had to stop being the assistant. I had to become the queen. I unzipped the garment bag and let the blood-red silk pool onto the floor. Tonight, the dragon was bringing his wife to the party. But I wasn't just going to stand there and look pretty. I was going to play the game. The grand ballroom of Conrad Seoul was a sea of diamonds, tuxedos, and fake smiles. It was the kind of place where a single bottle of champagne cost more than my first car. But as we walked in, the room didn't look at the champagne. They looked at us. Or rather, they looked at Tae-Joon. He was a force of nature in a bespoke black tuxedo, the velvet lapels absorbing the light. His hair was styled back, revealing the sharp, predatory angles of his face. He didn't just walk, he prowled. And glued to his side, clutching his arm like a lifeline, was me. The red dress was a statement. A scream, really. The silk clung to every curve, the slit riding dangerously high up my thigh with every step. I felt exposed, beautiful, and terrified all at once. Every eye in the room lingered on the crimson fabric against my skin. I heard the whispers ripple through the crowd like a wave. Is that her? The American wife. She looks different. Tae-Joon's hand tightened on my waist. His thumb rubbed a slow, possessive circle against the silk covering my hip. It was a silent message to everyone in the room, mine. "Breathe," he murmured in my ear, his lips brushing the shell. "You look dangerous tonight, Nia." "I like it." "I feel like bait," I whispered back, smiling tightly for the cameras flashing in our faces. "You are not bait," he said, his voice dropping to that low rumble that vibrated in my chest. "You are the hook. And I am the line. Let them look. They can do nothing else." We moved deeper into the room. Waiters swerved to avoid us. Businessmen bowed their heads in respect or fear. Probably fear. Tae-Joon nodded vaguely at them, his face a mask of bored indifference. But I felt the tension in his arm. He was scanning the room, assessing threats, counting exits. And then, the threat materialized. "Tae-Joon." The voice was like a glass of ice water poured down my back. I stiffened. Lady Hannah stood in front of us, flanked by two older men who looked like they strangled puppies for a living. If I looked dangerous in red, she looked lethal in silver. Her gown was chainmail mesh, shimmering like fish scales. She looked like a mermaid who drowned sailors for sport. "Hannah," Tae-Joon said. His tone was polite. Cold. Business. She stepped closer, completely ignoring me. Her dark eyes locked onto his. She began speaking in rapid, fluid Korean. It was fast, complex, filled with idioms and business terms I hadn't learned in my Rosetta Stone lessons. I stood there, a frozen smile plastered on my face, gripping my clutch bag so hard my knuckles turned white. I caught a few words. Busan. Port. Shipment. Union. But mostly I caught the vibe. It was intimate. It was an exclusion tactic. She was building a wall of language around him, shutting me out, proving to everyone watching that she spoke his language, literally and metaphorically, and I didn't. Tae-Joon responded in Korean. He didn't switch to English for my benefit. He kept it professional, nodding at whatever she was proposing. Then Hannah laughed. She reached out and touched his lapel, brushing off an invisible speck of dust. The gesture was so casual, so familiar, it made bile rise in my throat. Tae-Joon always did have impeccable taste in suits, she said, finally switching to English. She turned her gaze to me, her eyes raking over my red dress. And accessories. My blood boiled. Accessories. Tae-Joon didn't step away. He didn't slap her hand away. He just stood there, the stoic king, allowing this woman to disrespect his wife because it was good for business. "Enjoy the party," Hannah said with a smirk. She turned and walked away, her silver dress swaying hypnotically. I pulled my hand from Tae-Joon's arm. He looked down at me, his brow furrowing. "Nia?" "I'm going to get a drink," I said, my voice brittle. "Wait," he started, reaching for me. "Stay with me." "Why?" I snapped, keeping my voice low so the people nearby couldn't hear. "So I can stand here and look pretty while you discuss empire business with your ex-fiancé? I think I'll go stand by the bar. That's where the accessories belong, right?" "Nia, stop," he warned, his eyes darkening. "She is trying to provoke you. Do not let her win." "She's doing a great job," I muttered. "Don't worry, I won't cause a scene. I know the rules." I turned on my heel and walked away before he could stop me. I could feel his gaze burning a hole between my shoulder blades, but he didn't follow. He couldn't. He was surrounded by a group of investors instantly. I made it to the bar and ordered sparkling water with a twist of lime. I needed alcohol, but I needed my wits more. I took a sip, watching the room. I saw Tae-Joon across the floor. He was taller than everyone else. He looked powerful. And he looked distant. Like he belonged to a world I would never truly understand. "He looks intense, doesn't he?" I jumped slightly. Standing next to me was a man. He was young, maybe late 20s, with messy brown hair and a charming, boyish smile. He wore a suit, but he wore it casually, no tie, top button undone. He looked like Silicon Valley money. "Sorry," he laughed, raising his hands. "Didn't mean to startle you. I'm Alex. Tech sector." "Nia," I said, relaxing slightly. He seemed harmless. And yes, intense is one word for it. "I'm surprised he let you out of his sight," Alex said, leaning against the bar. "If I was married to the woman in the red dress, I'd probably keep her locked in a tower." It was a line. A cheesy one. But God, it felt good to be seen. To be spoken to like a person, not a prop. "Well, towers get lonely," I said, taking another sip of water. The band shifted from a slow jazz number to something with a bit more rhythm. Alex held out a hand. "Dance," he offered. It might annoy him. I looked at Alex. Then I looked across the room. Tae-Joon was still talking to the investors, but I saw Hannah hovering near his elbow again, whispering something in his ear. That was it. "I'd love to," I said. I took Alex's hand. We walked onto the dance floor. It was a petty move. I knew it. But I wanted Tae-Joon to feel a fraction of what I felt. I wanted him to see that I wasn't just his shadow. I was a woman, and other men noticed. Alex was a good dancer. He spun me around, and the red dress flared out beautifully. I laughed, throwing my head back. It was a fake laugh, loud enough to carry. "You're tense," Alex noted, pulling me a little closer than necessary. "Relax. He's just a guy." "He's not just a guy," I murmured, my eyes scanning the room over Alex's shoulder. And then I saw him. The crowd had parted. Tae-Joon was standing alone at the edge of the dance floor. The investors were gone. Hannah was gone. It was just him. And he was looking at me. His face was terrifyingly blank. No anger. No jealousy. Just a cold, absolute stillness. It was the look of a predator deciding exactly how to dismantle its prey. His eyes flicked to Alex's hand on my waist. Oh, Alex said nervously, following my gaze. "I think the dragon just woke up." Tae-Joon started walking toward us. He didn't rush. He moved with a lethal grace that made the air in the room feel heavy. People stopped dancing. The music seemed to fade into the background. He stopped right in front of us. He didn't look at Alex. He didn't even acknowledge Alex's existence. He looked only at me. "My turn," he said. It wasn't a request. Alex, wisely, let go of me immediately. "All yours, man." He practically ran off the dance floor. Tae-Joon stepped into my space. He didn't take a dance hold. He wrapped an arm around my waist and pulled me against him so hard the air left my lungs. His other hand slid up my neck, his thumb resting on my pulse point. He could feel my heart hammering. "What are you doing?" I whispered, breathless. "Reminding you," he said softly. He started to move us. It wasn't a dance. It was a domination. He guided me backward, away from the center of the floor, toward the shadows of the pillars. "You are enjoying yourself," he murmured, his lips brushing my temple. "Dancing with strange men." "Laughing." "He asked me," I said, tilting my chin up defiantly. "You were busy." "I am never too busy for you." His grip tightened. "Do you like him?" "He has soft hands. A weak chin." "He was nice," I countered. He spoke English to me. Tae-Joon stopped abruptly. We were in a dim corridor now, away from the prying eyes of the gala. The noise of the party was muffled behind heavy velvet curtains. He backed me up until my spine hit the cool plaster of the wall. He planted his hands on either side of my head, caging me in. His body was a wall of heat against mine. "You did that to punish me," he growled. His composure was cracking. The mask was slipping. This wasn't the CEO. This was the man who had burned down a warehouse for me. "You wanted to make me jealous. Did it work?" I breathed, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Work." He let out a harsh, dry laugh. "Nia, when I saw his hand on your waist, I calculated exactly how much pressure it would take to snap his wrist. I visualized throwing him through the window." He leaned closer, his nose brushing mine. His eyes were wild, dilated pupils swallowing the iris. "You are dangerous," he whispered. "You make me lose control. Hannah means nothing. She is a snake. I speak her language because I have to. But you." He dropped one hand to my hip, gripping the red silk, bunching it up in his fist. "You are the only thing that matters. Do not let another man touch you. I cannot handle it. I will not be responsible for what I do." "Then don't let another woman look at you," I shot back, tears stinging my eyes. "Don't let her make me feel small, Tae-Joon. I can handle the danger. I can handle guns. But I can't handle feeling like I don't belong with you." His expression shattered. The anger vanished, replaced by a desperate, agonizing need. "You belong," he swore, his voice ragged. "You are the only place I belong." He crashed his lips onto mine. It wasn't a sweet kiss. It was a collision. It was months of fear, hours of jealousy, and a lifetime of obsession poured into a single moment. His mouth was hot, demanding, devouring. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him closer, tangling my fingers in his hair. I kissed him back with everything I had, tasting the whiskey and the rage on his tongue. He groaned low in his throat, lifting me up. I wrapped my legs around his waist instinctively. He pressed me harder against the wall, his hips grinding against mine, the friction of the silk dress maddening. "Mine," he gasped against my mouth. "Say it." "Yours," I sobbed, biting his lower lip. "Only yours." "Let them look," he whispered hoarsely, kissing down my jaw, finding the sensitive spot beneath my ear. "Let Hannah look. Let the world look. Let them see that the dragon burns for no one but his wife." For a moment, in that dark corridor, nothing else existed. No Mafia wars. No rival heiresses. Just him, me, and the fire that threatened to consume us both. But we were so wrapped up in each other, so blinded by the intensity of our own connection, that neither of us noticed the small red light blinking in the distance. Neither of us noticed that Alex, the nice tech investor with the soft hands, wasn't running away. He was standing at the end of the hall, checking his watch. And he was smiling. The drive home was silent, but it wasn't the empty silence of the spa ride. This silence was electric. It hummed with the kind of tension that made the air feel thick enough to choke on. Tae-Joon didn't let go of me for a single second. His hand rested heavy on my thigh, his thumb tracing the line of the slit in the red dress, over and over again. He wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't looking at the road. He was looking at me, his eyes dark and dilated, tracking every breath I took. The divider was up between us and the driver, giving us the illusion of privacy in the back of the armored SUV. "You are quiet," he murmured, his voice rough. "I'm thinking," I whispered, leaning my head against his shoulder. The adrenaline from the confrontation in the hallway was starting to fade, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion mixed with a simmering heat that pooled low in my stomach. "About what?" "About what you said." I turned my head to look at him. The passing streetlights of Seoul flashed across his face, shadow, light, "That I belong to you." His grip on my leg tightened, just enough to bruise. "You do? And you belong to me?" He picked up my hand, bringing it to his lips. He kissed the inside of my wrist, right over my pulse. "Body and soul, Nia. If I have a soul left." I shivered. It was a line that should have been cheesy, but coming from him, with the weight of his history and the blood on his hands, it sounded like a confession. The car slowed as we entered the private underground entrance of the Kang Tower. We bypassed the main lobby, taking the express elevator straight to the penthouse. The ride up was agonizing. We were alone in the steel box, the numbers ticking upward: 40, 50, 60. Tae-Joon moved behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, burying his face in the crook of my neck. He inhaled deeply, smelling the perfume I wore, smelling the fear and the arousal. "I hate that dress," he growled against my skin, his teeth grazing the sensitive cord of my neck. "I thought you said red was your favorite color," I gasped, leaning back into him. "I love how it looks," he corrected, his hands sliding up to cut my ribs. "I hate that other men saw you in it. I hate that it is still on your body." The elevator dinged. The doors slid open to the penthouse. Tae-Joon didn't wait. He swept me up into his arms, carrying me across the threshold like we were newlyweds on our wedding night. I laughed, a breathless, startled sound, kicking my legs as he strode toward the master bedroom. "Tae-Joon, put me down." "No." He kicked the bedroom door shut behind us with a resounding thud. He didn't turn on the lights. The only illumination came from the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city of Seoul glowing like a galaxy of artificial stars below us. He set me down on the edge of the massive bed, his movements urgent, shedding his tuxedo jacket and tossing it carelessly onto the floor. He stepped between my knees, his hands going to the zipper at the back of my dress. "Turn around," he commanded softly. I obeyed, turning my back to him. I felt the cold metal of the zipper against my spine, then the warmth of his fingers brushing my skin as he slowly, agonizingly, pulled it down. The silk pulled around my waist. I held my breath, waiting for his touch. But he stopped. "What is this?" His voice had changed. The heat was gone, replaced by ice. I turned around, clutching the front of the dress to my chest. "What?" Tae-Joon was holding something small and metallic. It looked like a silver pin, maybe a cufflinks. He was holding it up to the light, his eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. "This was on your dress," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Pinned to the back, near the zipper." I squinted at it. I don't know. Maybe it's part of the design? Or maybe I picked it up at the gala." "It is not part of the design," he said, crushing the object between his fingers. He walked over to the window, examining it closely. "It is a transmitter. A high-frequency listening device. Short range, but powerful enough to bypass a firewall if it's inside the perimeter." He turned to me, and the look on his face made my blood run cold. It wasn't anger at me. It was fear. "Nia, who touched you tonight?" My mind raced. "No one. I mean, just you. And Hannah touched my arm." "Hannah was in front of you," he snapped, his mind working like a computer. "This was on your back." "Who touched your back?" The memory flashed. The bar. The dance. The hand on my waist. "Alex." "The tech investor," I whispered, my hand flying to my mouth. "Alex." When we danced, his hand was on my back. He spun me around. He must have. Tae-Joon's face went pale. He wasn't an investor. Suddenly, the room went red. Not a metaphor. The ambient lighting of the penthouse was cut out, replaced instantly by harsh, pulsing crimson emergency lights. A low, synthetic siren began to wail, vibrating through the floorboards. System failure. Perimeter breach. System failure. The automated voice of the security system echoed through the apartment. Get down! Tae-Joon roared. He tackled me onto the bed just as the glass of the bedroom window shattered. Crash. Bullets tore through the space where we had been standing a second ago, shredding the silk pillows and putting holes in the expensive mahogany wardrobe. I screamed, scrambling backward across the mattress, tangling in the sheets. Tae-Joon was already moving. He rolled off the bed, crouching low, reaching under the mattress. He pulled out a handgun, sleek, black, and terrifying. Stay down, he yelled over the sound of the siren. Do not move. What is happening? I cried, covering my head as another volley of gunfire erupted from the hallway. They used the bug to hack the local jamming signal, Tae-Joon shouted, checking the magazine of his gun. They bypassed the elevator locks. We have company. He crawled toward me, grabbing my arm. The safe room. Now. He dragged me off the bed. We were crawling on the floor, the red light strobing, making everything look like a horror movie. Glass shards dug into my knees, but I didn't feel the pain. Adrenaline was flooding my veins, turning the world into slow motion. We reached the walk-in closet. Inside, behind a row of designer suits, was a hidden panel. Tae-Joon punched in a code. The wall slid open, revealing a steel-reinforced room. Get in, he ordered, pushing me toward it. Lock it from the inside. Do not open it for anyone but me. If I don't come back in 10 minutes, use the sat phone in the emergency kit to call Jean. He turned to leave, heading back toward the gunfire. No. I grabbed his arm. My nails dug into his white shirt, tearing the fabric. No. I'm not locking myself in a box while you die. Nia, this is not a negotiation, he shouted, his eyes wild. There are at least 3 of them. I can hear their boots. I cannot fight them if I am worrying about you. Then don't worry about me. I screamed back, tears streaming down my face. Use me. I'm not a mascot, Tae-Joon. I'm your wife. We fight together. He stared at me for a split second. The gunfire was getting closer. The heavy oak doors of the bedroom were starting to splinter under the assault. He looked at the fire in my eyes, the same fire he had fallen in love with. Fine, he snarled. He reached into his waistband and pulled out a second gun? No, he didn't have a second gun. He looked around wildly. He grabbed a heavy marble bust of a Roman emperor from the shelf and shoved it into my hands. Stay behind the bed. If anyone comes through that door who isn't me, you swing this with everything you have. Do you understand? Yes, I breathed, gripping the cold marble statue. Good girl. He kissed me hard, fast, tasting of desperation, and then he vaulted over the bed. The bedroom doors burst open. 2 men in black tactical gear stormed in. They wore gas masks and carried suppressed submachine guns. Tae-Joon didn't hesitate. He fired. Bang. Bang. The first man dropped, screaming, clutching his leg. The second man returned fire. Tae-Joon dived behind the heavy velvet armchair, bullets tearing up the upholstery. It was chaos. The sound of gunshots in the enclosed space was deafening. I was curled in a ball behind the bed, clutching the marble bust, sobbing silently. I could hear Tae-Joon grunting, the sound of heavy boots on the floor, the smell of cordite and burning fabric. Give it up, dragon, a voice shouted. It was Alex. The nice tech guy. His voice wasn't nice anymore. We just want the girl. Give us the girl and you keep the crown. Over my dead body. Tae-Joon roared. He popped up from behind the chair, firing 2 shots. I heard a grunt of pain from Alex, but then a click. Tae-Joon was out of ammo. I heard the slide of his gun lock back. He's dry. Alex shouted. Get him. I heard a scuffle. The sound of flesh hitting flesh. A sickening crack. I peeked over the edge of the bed. Tae-Joon was wrestling with the second gunman. He had knocked the gun away, but the man was huge, easily 250 pounds of muscle. He had Tae-Joon in a chokehold, pinned against the wall. Tae-Joon's face was turning purple. He was clawing at the man's arm, but his strength was fading. Alex was stepping over the first fallen gunman, raising his weapon toward Tae-Joon's head. "Goodbye, dragon," Alex sneered. Time stopped. If I did nothing, Tae-Joon died. If I stayed hidden, I would become a widow. I became a prize for the Busan Syndicate. We fight together. I didn't think so. I moved. I scrambled up from behind the bed. I didn't have a gun. I couldn't shoot Alex. But I had my phone. My indestructible, military-grade phone that Tae-Joon had given me. I fumbled with the screen. Flashlight. Strobe mode. I sprinted across the room. "Hey!" I screamed. Alex turned toward me, surprised. I thrust the phone right into his face. The high-intensity LED strobe light blinded him instantly. In the dark room, with his pupils dilated, it was like staring into the sun. Arg! My eyes. Alex screamed, staggering back, firing his gun blindly into the ceiling. It was the distraction Tae-Joon needed. He slammed his head back into the nose of the man holding him. Crunch. The man's grip loosened. Tae-Joon spun around, driving his knee into the man's groin, then delivering a vicious elbow to the temple. The giant crumpled to the floor. Tae-Joon didn't stop. He lunged for his fallen gun on the floor, swapped the magazine with a spare from his pocket in one fluid motion, and leveled it at Alex. Alex was still rubbing his eyes, trying to blink away the blindness. Wait, we can make a deal. Hannah pays better than. Bang. Tae-Joon didn't do deals. Alex dropped to the floor, silent. Silence rushed back into the room, heavier than before. The only sound was the wailing of the alarm and our ragged breathing. The red lights continued to pulse. Heartbeat. 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 Tae-Joon stood there for a moment, chest heaving, the guns still raised. He looked like a demon. His white shirt was torn, stained with blood, some his, some theirs. His hair was wild. Slowly, he lowered the gun. He turned to look at me. I was standing in the middle of the room, shaking uncontrollably, still holding my phone like a weapon. My red dress was ripped at the hem. I was barefoot on the glass-covered floor. "Nia," he breathed. He dropped the gun and crossed the room, collapsing onto his knees in front of me. He grabbed my hips, burying his face in my stomach. "You foolish, stupid, brave girl," he groaned, his voice breaking. "I told you to hide." I dropped the phone and fell to my knees with him, wrapping my arms around his neck. I was crying now, huge, racking sobs of relief. "I told you, we fight together." He pulled back to look at me. His hands were shaking as they cupped my face. He smeared a streak of blood on my cheek, but he didn't notice. He was checking me for bullet holes, for scratches, for anything. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "I'm fine," I choked out. "I'm fine. Are you okay?" I looked at him. There was a nasty gash on his cheekbone, bleeding sluggishly. His knuckles were raw. "I am fine," he said, wiping the blood from his cheek with the back of his hand. "Because you're alive." He pulled me into a kiss that tasted like iron and tears. It was desperate, terrified, and overwhelmingly grateful. We held each other on the floor of our ruined bedroom, surrounded by shattered glass and broken bodies, the red emergency lights washing over us. The elevator chimed in the distance. Heavy boots thundered down the hall. "Boss, secure the perimeter." It was Jean and the security team. They were too late to save us, but they were here now. Tae-Joon pulled away from me, his eyes shifting back to the cold, hard steel of the dragon. He stood up, pulling me up with him. He positioned me behind his back, shielding me from the sight of his men as they burst into the room. "Clear the trash," Tae-Joon ordered, gesturing to the bodies on the floor. His voice was steady, commanding. The vulnerability was gone. "And get a cleanup crew. My wife is barefoot." But as he gave the orders, his hand reached back, finding mine. He interlaced our fingers, squeezing so hard it hurt. He didn't let go. Not while they dragged the bodies away. Not while the police sirens started to wail in the distance below. He held on like I was the only thing keeping him tethered to the earth. And as I looked at the carnage in our bedroom, the shattered windows, the bullet holes in the walls, I realized something. Hannah was right about one thing. The war had started. But she was wrong about me. I wasn't a mascot. I had just blinded a hitman with a cell phone and saved the dragon's life. I squeezed Tae-Joon's hand back. Let them come. We were ready. The sun rose over a broken penthouse. The glass had been swept away, the blood scrubbed from the marble, but the smell of violence still lingered in the air like stale smoke. I sat on the edge of the guest bed. Our bed was currently being dismantled as crime scene evidence, watching Tae-Joon pace. He was on the phone, barking orders in Korean, his voice a low, terrifying rumble that vibrated through the walls. He hadn't slept. He hadn't changed out of his ruined tuxedo pants. He was a caged tiger, furious that his sanctuary had been breached. They will pay, he said into the phone, then hung up without a goodbye. He turned to me, his eyes softening instantly. You should be sleeping. I can't sleep, I said, standing up. My legs felt shaky, but my mind was surprisingly clear. What happens now? Now, he said, walking over to me and taking my hands, I finish this. I have called a meeting with the Busan Syndicate. Hannah and her father are coming here tonight. Here? I asked, looking around the damaged room. To the hotel conference room downstairs. Neutral ground, he corrected. I will offer them a choice. They can leave Seoul, or they can die. After what they did to you, there is no third option. I'm coming with you, I said. It wasn't a question. Tae-Joon stiffened. No, absolutely not. You are going to the safe house in Jeju. Jean is prepping the helicopter now. No, I repeated, louder this time. I pulled my hands away from his. I am not going to a safe house. I am not running away. Hannah called me a mascot, Tae-Joon. If I run now, she wins. She proves that I am weak. That I am just a liability you have to hide. You are not a liability, he shouted, the exhaustion cracking his composure. You are my wife. My job is to protect you. And my job is to be your partner. I shouted back. They came into our home. They tried to kill us in our bedroom. This isn't just your war anymore. It's ours. If I am going to be Mrs. Kang, I need to look her in the eye and show her that I am not afraid. Tae-Joon stared at me. He looked at the bruise forming on my arm from the struggle. He looked at the fire in my eyes. He took a deep breath, running a hand through his messy hair. He walked to the window, looking out at the city he ruled. If you come, he said quietly, without turning around, you cannot speak. You sit beside me. You look pretty. You let me handle the violence. I don't want to handle the violence, I said, walking up behind him and wrapping my arms around his waist, resting my cheek against his torn shirt. I want to handle politics. I heard something, Tae-Joon. At the spa. Before Hannah came into the room to threaten me, she was on the phone. She didn't think anyone was listening. She was speaking English because she thought the staff didn't understand. Tae-Joon turned around in my arms, his eyes narrowing. What did she say? She was arguing with someone about the Cayman accounts, I whispered. She said the funds were diverted without her father's permission. She's stealing from her own syndicate, Tae-Joon, to fund her coup against you. A slow, dangerous smile spread across Tae-Joon's face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of the dragon finding a weakness in the armor. Are you sure? Positive, I said. Mascots don't listen, right? She didn't think I was a threat. Tae-Joon kissed my forehead hard. Go get dressed. Wear something intimidating. The private dining room of the Conrad Hotel was silent as a tomb. The walls were lined with dark wood, the table set with crystal and silver that gleamed under the low light. On one side sat Chairman Park of the Busan Syndicate, an old man with skin like parchment and eyes like a shark. Beside him sat Lady Hannah. She looked perfect, untouched, wearing a white suit that screamed purity and power. She looked bored. On the other side sat Tae-Joon. He had showered and changed into a charcoal suit, his hair slicked back, his bruises covered with makeup, though the cut on his cheek was still visible, a badge of honor. And beside him sat me. I wasn't wearing a dress tonight. I wore a sharp, black-tailored suit that matched Tae-Joon's. My hair was pulled back tight. I wore no jewelry except my wedding ring. I sat with my back straight, hands folded on the table, staring directly at Hannah. She refused to look at me. "This is a waste of time, Kong," Chairman Park grunted in Korean. The translator in the corner began to speak, but Tae-Joon held up a hand. "English," Tae-Joon said calmly. "Out of respect for my wife." Hannah scoffed, a delicate, derisive sound. "Respect? You bring your pet to a war council? This is embarrassing, Tae-Joon. Send her away so the adults can talk." Tae-Joon didn't blink. He didn't even look at her. He looked at the chairman. "Your daughter attempted to assassinate me and my wife in our home last night. She used a third-party contractor to bypass the ceasefire." "Lies," Hannah said smoothly, examining her manicure. "I was at the opera." "You have no proof. Just the words of a frightened American girl." "I have the body of the hitman," Tae-Joon said, his voice dropping. "And his phone. But that is not why we are here. We are here because I am offering you mercy." "Mercy?" The chairman laughed, a dry, rattling wheeze. "You are outnumbered, Dragon. Busan controls the ports. We control the unions. You have Seoul, but we have the supply lines. You should be begging us for a deal." "We don't beg," I said. The silence that followed was deafening. Hannah's head snapped toward me. The chairman looked at me for the first time, his eyes narrowing. "She speaks." Hannah sneered. "How cute." "I speak," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "And I listen." "That's the problem with you, Hannah. You talk too much." "Excuse me," she hissed, her composure slipping. "At the spa," I continued, locking eyes with her. "Yesterday, before you came in to give me your little speech about queens and mascots, you were on the phone. You were shouting at someone named Marcus. Hannah's face went pale. The boredom vanished instantly. "I didn't know who Marcus was at the time," I said, glancing at Tae-Joon. He gave me a barely perceptible nod. "Go for the throat." So I asked my husband's team to look him up. Marcus Vane. A banker in the Cayman Islands. Specifically, the manager of the Aurora Shell Company. The chairman shifted in his seat. He looked at his daughter. "Hannah? What is she talking about?" "She's lying, father." Hannah snapped, her voice shrill. "She's making it up." "Am I?" I pulled a folder out of my bag and slid it across the table. It stopped right in front of the chairman. "Those are the transaction records. $5 million a month, siphoned from the Busan shipping profits, deposited into the Aurora account. An account that only Lady Hannah has access to." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "You called me a mascot," I said softly. "But mascots don't know where you buried the money, do they?" The chairman opened the folder. He flipped through the pages. His face turned a shade of purple that looked dangerous for his heart. He didn't look at me. He looked at his daughter. "Father, it's a fabrication," Hannah cried, standing up. "They forged it." Smack. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. The chairman had backhanded her across the face. Hannah crumbled into her chair, holding her cheek, tears of shock welling in her eyes. "You steal from me," the chairman hissed in Korean, then switched to English, his voice trembling with rage. "You steal from the family?" He turned to Tae-Joon. He looked old now. Defeated. "I apologize, Dragon," the chairman said, bowing his head slightly. "This internal matter will be dealt with." "See that it is," Tae-Joon said coldly. "The ceasefire stands. But Hannah leaves Seoul. Tonight. If I see her in my city again, I will not be as polite as my wife." "Agreed," the chairman whispered. He grabbed Hannah by the arm, dragging her up. She looked at me one last time. There was no arrogance left. Only fear. They left the room. The door clicked shut. I let out a breath I had been holding for 20 minutes. My shoulders slumped. "Did I do okay?" Tae-Joon turned to me. The look in his eyes wasn't just love anymore. It was awesome. It was the look a man gives a burning building, terrifying and beautiful. Okay, he murmured. He reached under the table and took my hand. Nia, you didn't just win. You executed her. He pulled me out of my chair and into his lap. He buried his face in my neck, inhaling deeply. God, you were so sexy when you were destroying my enemies. I laughed, the tension finally breaking. I told you. We fight together. 2 weeks later, the penthouse was repaired. The glass was new, the security system upgraded to military standards. Life had returned to normal, or as normal as it could be when your husband was a mafia king. We were standing on the balcony, watching the sunset over Seoul. The sky was a bruised purple and orange. Tae-Joon stood behind me, his arms wrapped around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. I have something for you, he said softly. Another dress? I teased. Please tell me it's not bulletproof. Better, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside wasn't a diamond. It was a ring, yes, but it was thick silver with an onyx stone. Put it on, he said. I slipped it onto my right index finger. It was heavy. Press the stone, he instructed. I pressed the onyx. Click. A tiny, curved blade, no longer than a fingernail but razor-sharp, popped out from the side of the setting. It is dipped in a paralytic agent, Tae-Joon explained casually, like he was describing a new phone feature. If anyone touches you, if anyone grabs you, you scratch them. They will be on the ground in 10 seconds. I looked at the ring. It was beautiful. And deadly. So I never miss a spot? I asked, looking up at him. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that made his eyes crinkle. So you never have to be afraid. You are the queen, Nia. And the queen always keeps a dagger in her sleeve. I retracted the blade and leaned back against him, looking out at the city. I felt safe. I felt powerful. We had won. The bad guys were gone. The war was over. I love you, dragon, I whispered. I love you, Mrs. Kong. We stood there, wrapped in each other, the perfect picture of a happy ending. The cliffhanger. Inside the apartment, the elevator chimed. Nia. Tae-Joon. I brought wine. It was Sophie, my best friend from back home. She had flown in to visit for the week to help me recover from the trauma. We're on the balcony, Sophie. I called out. Make yourself at home. Sophie walked into the living room. She looked around the opulent space, her eyes landing on the stray papers scattered on Tae-Joon's desk. He had left his laptop open. Coming, she yelled back, her voice cheerful. But she didn't come to the balcony. She walked over to the desk. Her smile dropped instantly, replaced by a cold, calculating expression I had never seen before. She pulled a small black USB drive from her purse. She plugged it into Tae-Joon's laptop. Copying files. 10%. 40%. 100%. She yanked the drive out and dropped it into her bra. Then, the bubbly smile returned to her face like a mask. She picked up the bottle of wine and skipped toward the balcony doors. So, she chirped, stepping out into the sunset to join us. Tell me everything. Did you really blind a guy with a cell phone? That is so wild. I smiled at my best friend, clueless. I'll tell you the whole story. But first, pour the wine. The enemy isn't always at the gate. Sometimes, she's sitting on your sofa. Wait. Sophie? If you want part 3 to see what happens with the betrayal, smash that like button and comment part 3 right now. I need 10,000 likes to drop the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Stories Pulse so you don't miss the drama. Thanks for watching.